Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. The Buffalo Bills defeated the New York Jets on Monday Night Football by a final score of 23-20. So, as always, I am here today, the day after staple recap show. Here today on Around the Slice, we're gonna go over. We're gonna I'm going to give you my usual routine, my stock report, what players stood out, my players of the game. We're going to reflect on my underdog fantasy picks and just predictions in general for last week. And we're going to have a fun time as always. So without further ado, let's get into it. So as I prefaced, I obviously, just said the Buffalo Bills defeated the New York Jets on Monday Night Football in New Jersey, mind you. It was in East Rutherford by a final score of 23-20. Now, I had not a hard time, but I did have a hard time. I had kind of a difficult, hard time, whatever you want to call it, settling on one word to describe this win for the Bills. And I settled on this. My one word to describe this win for the Bills is gritty. It wasn't pretty, nowhere close really. There were a ton of mistakes, but in the end, this team found a way. Sean McDermott in this offense and defense and special teams found a way between all the ugliness and just nowhere pretty. But I told you this. I came on this preview last week just before the game and told you that this in my projection, this was going to be a slow, ugly, grinded out, a slow, ugly, grinded out type game. And it was exactly that. It was absolutely grinded out type game. And to that point, I'm going to call this my one word to describe this win for the Bills, a gritty win. We'll jump into the specifics in the stock report, but this is a gritty win for the Buffalo Bills through and through. It showed their resolve. It showed they can fight through adversity and, all that stuff that teams like to say. It sounds cliche, but like last night, the game felt like an eternity because it was. But I told you it was going to be a slow, ugly, grinded out type game, and it absolutely was. So, Bills inactive pregame. Unfortunately, we already knew of defensive tackle Ed Oliver. He was not a healthy scratch. He was truly inactive because of injury. And then this one was a surprise. This second one is also due to injury. Running back James Cook. It was a last-minute change, if you will. Well, now if you will, it was a last-minute change because his agency, LAA or whatever, AA, whatever you want to call it, I can't remember the agency's name, but James Cook's agency came out 2 days before the game. So on Saturday, October 12th. On Saturday, they came out and said James Cook fully plans to play. So, I had him in a few fantasy lineups, and I was like, okay, his agency said he's going to play, so he's going to play. And then I'm sure a lot of fantasy managers were upset. Luckily, I was able to put some guys in there to resolve the issue, and I had already won/lost, so it didn't really matter. It was just for fun anyway in my lineups. Across my 14 leagues, a few with James Cook, but last minute change, he doesn't play. So the running back group with Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, they elevated Frank Gore Jr. a few hours before the game started. So that kind of like hint that James Cook is not playing. So this was kind of a surprise from his agency saying Saturday that he fully plans to play. And then the Bills shutting him down at the last minute and changing their mind saying, nope, he's inactive. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 4 true healthy scratches here. Safety Mike Edwards, which I think the ties could be turning for him, if you will. I'll get to that later on when I talk about the safeties as a whole. A couple linebackers here, Joe Andreessen and Eddie Lufosio. I'm surprised. I'm not shocked because they're low-level players, like special teams only players. Who cares? But I'm kind of surprised that both of them are inactive. It's usually one or the other. Barring injury, it's usually one or the other. And I know they really like Andreessen, Buffalo Joe Andreessen for special teams purposes and just overall health better than Ulufosio. So they're just saying that Ulo and Andreessen were both healthy scratches, true healthy inactives. And then center/guard Will Clapp. They continue to have faith in Cedric Van Granger as that third center behind Connor Governor as the starter and Alec Anderson as that jumbo tight end, 6 offensive linemen. Checking in as eligible, that direct backup center. And then I already mentioned Ed Oliver is a true injury-related inactive. Stock up. Who really impressed? Who really showed up? I'm going to be honest. There's only 5 or 6 names here in 5 or 6 situations here that we're going to have stock up. The stock report isn't massive because, like I said, it was a low-scoring, ugly, grinded out type game. But I think Josh Allen played one of his best games of the season. He didn't throw for a ton of yards, but he got back to what he was doing in the first 3 weeks of the season. In the first 3 weeks, what I mean by that is in the first 3 weeks of this year, 2024 season, NFL season, he was content with taking the check down. He wasn't getting bored with it. He was taking the cheese, if you will. Like my dad always likes to say, take what's there, take the cheese, take what's in front of you. But in the last 2 weeks, weeks 4 and 5, respectively, he was not okay with taking it. He was deep ball hunting. I think there was high passing volume. He was really rattled, especially against the Texans. He was mentally and physically checked out, more mentally checked out than anything I've ever seen from him. I think that was easily the worst game of his career, and he wasn't content. He was getting bored. I really do think he was getting bored with taking the check down. He's like a NASCAR. You got to NASCAR. He's like a Ferrari race car. He's like a Ferrari. You got to rein him in sometimes. He's not some pony. He's a stallion. So that's good, but you got to rein him in sometimes. So all this to say, Josh Allen's final stat line, he was 19 and 25, which is 76% completion percentage, which very high up there. League average is around what, 65, 66, give or take. So 215 passing yards. Like I said, he didn't light it up, barely over 200 passing yards, but that's okay. He's showing this year that he doesn't have to be Superman. He can rely on the run game way more than in years past. 2 passing touchdowns. He had 9 rushes for 18 yards and 1 touchdown. It's interesting that he had 9 rushes, but that didn't amount to many rushing yards. And the touchdown wasn't from far out either. It was kind of the Eagles call it tush push. We call it the snowplow with Deion Dawkins right there. I like how Josh Allen runs off tackle to the right when the defense is expecting to go to the left, or vice versa, all the way around, however it works out in certain game situations. But it's interesting that he had 9 rushing, and that didn't really convert to a lot of equity. Like, that didn't really show a lot of rushing yards and pure rushing equity, if you will. But I thought he played one of his, well, I think his best game of the season is week 4 against the Jaguars in terms of raw numbers. But in terms of week 4 against the Jaguars, sorry about week 3 against the Jaguars, when he led them to 3-0, and now they're 4-2 after dropping the last 2, the Ravens and Texans respectively. So Jaguars' best game of the season in terms of raw numbers. But in terms of like efficiency, taking what's there, take the cheese, if you will, taking checkdowns, not being bored, and not big play hunting, I think this was his best game of the season in terms of that aspect. And then, like I said, Josh Allen can rely on the running game. First, I'm going to talk about the 2 running backs. I'm going to talk about the lesser degree one, running back Ty Johnson first. 4 carries for 34 yards. I said I like Ty Johnson as an RB2, so that's 3 in this league. He gives you great special teams ability, great return ability, and kick and punt returns respectively, most of the time, and or both. He can run outside the tackle, or he could run outside zone, inside zone, in between the tackles, off tackle, receive out of the backfield. It's kind of a mix between Ray Davis and James Cook. He doesn't do anything at a great high level, but he does everything at a pretty consistent level. So I thought the 4 carries was very efficient for 34 yards. But running back Ray Davis, he stole the show. He ran the ball, just ran away with the game against the Jets defense, literally and physically. And I said both these run defenses are garbage. Like, Bills are the Bills are like 26. They're allowing 144 rushing yards per game right now. After last night, I don't know what it is. Coming into last night, though, they were Monday Night Football coming into the last night, they were allowing 144 rushing yards per game to opposing offenses. That was 26th in the league. And the New York Jets, the Jets were dead last. So, but Ray Davis fully took advantage of that. 20 carries, which I thought it was going to be more of a split. Like, maybe Ray Davis gets 15 and like Ty Johnson gets like 11 or 12 or 13, somewhere around there, 11 and 13, somewhere around there. And Ray Davis kind of ran away with it. 97 yards. And then, but what he did in the passing game was really, really effective. 3 catches, 55 yards. I was kind of joking with my dad, like that was the deep threat we needed, Ray Davis, but it's true. Like, he was the only true deep threat last night. So it was kind of funny seeing that. But like, I think it's fair to say, obviously, James Cook, his best attribute is being a dynamic, athletic running back, catching out of the backfield. But I think it's fair to say that Ray Davis's hands are maybe a bit more consistent than James Cook. I think that's fair to say at this point, because James Cook has shown he drops wide open touchdowns way more than I would like. And Ray Davis catches everything, as we saw last night, especially in that deep shot, which went for like 30 yards. So that was awesome to see. And then finally, tight end Dalton Kincaid got going. 6 catches for 51 yards in the night. I would have loved to see him get in the end zone. I think he should have 2 or 3 receiving touchdowns this year so far, and he only has 1. Dawson Knox is pretty much the deep threat. I still don't love the usage they're giving Dalton Kincaid. I still want them to use him way more in intermediate and downfield passing threat as opposed to like a screen or a little dump off or a little bubble screen or what have you, and make him like create after the catch, which, don't get me wrong, credit to Dalton Kincaid, he can create after the catch, but I don't like the way Joe Brady is deploying him through the first 6 weeks of the season. I don't think he's touching 1,000 yards, and I don't even know if he gets to like 75, even 100 receiving yards this season, give or take, in a single game. So, but tight end, Dawson Knox as well. He's obviously the bigger receiving threat. He had one catch, which 12 yards, and that one catch for 12 yards was a receiving touchdown. I mean, it was absolutely bonkers, just absurd play. Josh Allen vanished, and then he reappeared. It was like a Houdini act. I don't know how he ducked under the pass rush. I don't really care who the pass rusher was. I have no clue. Bottom line is he ducked under the pass rush and then found a strike to Dawson Knox for that 12-yard passing touchdown. And Knox was actually on the receiving end of that. So I don't know how Josh Allen Houdini act. Good for Dawson Knox finding his way open. But I still don't love the 12 personnel looks because they've had since April to iron this out. And it looks like it's still very very clunky, if you will, and very unorganized and just very all over the place. And I kind of blame Joe Brady mostly, actually fully, because you had since April to figure this out. And this is what you drafted Dalton Kincaid for. Knowing fully well that you already had Dawson Knox on a $12.5 million a year. I still think he's an overpaid tight end because it was just his fourth catch of the season. And the fourth catch was a touchdown, so credit to him. But you drafted Dalton Kincaid knowing that you already had Dawson Knox, and you drafted Dalton Kincaid. You've come out and said that you want to run 12 personnel, you want to run heavy 2 tight end sets, and I haven't really seen that this season. And when they have been on the field together, it's been kind of all over the place and unorganized and disorganized, and what have you. So I don't love that, and I don't love the usage of Dalton Kincaid, and I don't love the 12 personnel looks, but credit to Dawson Knox. Just his fourth catch of the season ends up being a touchdown. And then defensive end, A.J. Epinesa, his final stat line, he was a machine. 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit. I'm going to say this right now. This officiating was absolutely embarrassing. Adrian Hill, the lead referee, Adrian Hill last night in Monday Night Football against the Jets was horrific. I mean, horrific in every sense of the word. He should never touch a football field again. That is embarrassing for the NFL. They stress product for the fans, a good viewing experience for fans. It was like, if I wasn't a Bills fan, it was borderline on, even as a Bills fan, it was borderline unwatchable. It all started. A.J. Epinesa would have had 3 sacks in the night if it wasn't called roughing the passer when he tackled. I'd say tackle Aaron Rodgers. It was a freaking textbook tackle. He sacked Aaron Rodgers, he tackled him, and then got up. And then Adrian Hill, this horrific idiot, calls a roughing the passer. His explanation was because he saw Epinesa perform an unnecessary second act. Are you kidding me? Tackling someone and then getting up isn't allowed anymore? What are these defenders supposed to do? And it wasn't just this with the horrific officiating. There were flags all over the place. There were a ton of ticky-tack holds, a ton of ticky-tack illegal formations. Now, some of them were warranted. But, like, it was on both sides, but more, like, in favor of the Jets. It was bad. Like, Adrian Hill should never even come close to touching a football field again. Like, that's an embarrassing product for Roger Goodell and the NFL. Adrian Hill needs to be investigated because this is not right. Like, that was not right. I'm not afraid to put him on blast. That was just not right what went down last night. And then Deion Dawkins, you know he hates the Jets. You know he absolutely despises every single player on that team going all the way back to last year. We were on a commercial break. The lights turned off because, you know, at the quarter break, in between quarters, the lights turn off, you know, give everyone a refresher, fans, whatever. After the third quarter, in between the third and fourth quarter, lights turn off, and then we get into a little skirmish, and Deion Dawkins goes over and says some not so nice words, apparently, to the Jets defenders, and he walked away. And then two just defenders were cornering him and going, and that one just defender was continuing running after him and going after him. I think it was Quinn and Williams. I really don't know or care. But then they call an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on just Deion Dawkins. I don't think it should have been called on Dawkins at all, but at the very least, give it to both and have it be offsetting. I don't know what this Adrian held a vendetta against us last night. I don't know, but that was not right. What went down? That was not right. So Adrian Epinesa should have had 3 sacks, and he only had 2. That's still out. Defensive tackle Daquan Jones. He had 2 tackles. Stock up. We're still in stock up. 2 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 QB hit. He had a couple more nice little pressures. I've said this last year before he got his injury. He was playing this like a top 5 defensive tackle, all pro level in the league last year before his injury. I always knew he was an elite run defender, but he's shown some nice burst and nice power as like a sack, not a sack artist, but like a penetrator on the defensive line as a big boy defensive tackle. And then corner Taron Johnson, 8 tackles, 1 pass deflection, 1 interception. He literally ripped it away from Mike Williams, because if Mike Williams didn't run the wrong route at the very end of the fourth quarter, towards the end of the fourth quarter, didn't run the wrong route, didn't slip, then we're talking about the Bills most likely 99% sure win the game, lose the game. The Jets would win like 27-20 or 27-23. So that would be unfortunate, but thank God Mike Williams slipped, ran the wrong route. Rodgers called him out on it too, which not a good look, but that's why I traded for Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers' best friend club with Nathaniel Hackett, Rodgers, and Lazard, Devontae Adams. Apparently it's a big old Green Bay reunion over there, but Taron Johnson literally mossed Mike Williams, ripped it right away from him, and that ended the game. Josh Allen literally and figuratively iced the game a couple plays later with a first down run when they only had 1 timeout. So Taron Johnson, such a welcome sight to have him back. Corner, Christian Benford, outside corner, 4 tackles and 1 pass deflection. He came close in a couple of interceptions as well. Like the ball was tipped up by him or a teammate, and he could have came down with it. But I love Christian Benford. He is such a transcendent talent because he can play. He's awesome in zone. He's awesome in man. His ball skills have greatly improved since his rookie year. He's physical as hell. Like, he is one of the most physical tacklers in the league, period. Since his career started 2 years ago in 2022 draft, respectively. So he's just awesome. And Christian Benford, now he probably won't get first team All-Pro votes because, there's better corners in the AFC, which Jalen Ramsey I think is overrated, but people love him, especially the voters. Pat Surtain, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, his teammate as well. But Christian Benford needs to get, at the very least, second team All-Pro love votes, in my opinion. I think he has a very legit case to even be front runner and make it that right now. So I love Christian Benford. I said coming into this year 100 times over, I beat it to death on this podcast for good reason, though. I beat it to death that Christian Benford, after this year, hot take, will be considered a transcendent corner in this league. He will be considered an elite corner in this league, whether it's top 5, top 10, I don't know. Whoever long your elite corner list is, it's probably like Pat Surtain, Sauce Gardner, and then Christian Benford in terms of AFC corners and maybe the league as a whole. So yeah. And then right guard Osiris Torrance, I mean, he absolutely bulldozed some dudes in the run game. On that first Ray Davis run, Josh Allen snuck it in, excuse me, proper English. When they got down there, because Ray Davis and Osiris Torrance absolutely road graded some dudes. He is a people mover through and through, and his pass protection has kind of been a mess this year, but he'll hopefully bounce back in that. But he's an absolute road grader, people mover in the run game. Mix. These are some players that kind of I didn't want to put them to stock up. I didn't want to put them to stock down. They didn't necessarily hurt their case, but they didn't improve their case or stand out. They were just kind of so-so. They did some good things. They did some bad, disappointing things. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel, 3 catches for 44 yards. That's easily, by far, his most productive stat line of the season. he's a guy that I don't think has as much juice as he did even like last year with the Commanders, but especially in 2020 with the Carolina Panthers, where he had 800 something receiving yards and 300 something rushing yards. I don't like how Joe Burrow is deploying him this year at all. He had one deep target, which credit to him, he caught last night on Monday Night Football against the Jets in East Rutherford, but they're forcing screens to him. One, stop forcing screens to Curtis Samuel, excuse me, because it looks like he doesn't have as much juice as he should this year. And two, let's detonate. Let's remove all screens from the playbook forever. Like Bills need to remove all screens from their playbook for eternity. Just stop forcing them. I don't care if it's Curtis Samuel or whoever else, but just stop. So I don't like his usage. And then wide receiver Matt Collins, 1 touchdown, 8 yard, or 1 catch, one excuse me, 1 catch, 8 yards, and 1 touchdown. He drew a couple DPIs as well, which again, those were the right calls. He would have had 2 touchdowns if DJ Reed didn't interfere with him on that one and lock his arm back. I think Matt Collins, I'll get that snaps count takeaways enough later on in a few minutes, but later on basically, but bottom line, but I don't think Matt Collins should be on the field as much as he is. That's just my personal opinion. Like 1 minute he has a touchdown, the next minute, basically he is horrible at leveraging space, and he's pretty horrible at ball. His ball directing skills are kind of garbage and very poor. So I don't really like Matt Collins, but I guess good for a touchdown. Safety Taylor Rapp, mixed, 8 tackles, 3 pass deflections. All 3 of those pass deflections came in the fourth quarter. He had a very nice fourth quarter, but for the first 3 quarters before that, he was pretty poor. A bunch of coverage busts, a bunch of missed tackles, a few more than I would have liked specifically. But the fourth quarter, he balled out. But the 3 quarters before that, I dig him for very poor play. And then, so I'll put him in mix because he had an awesome fourth quarter. Right before Taron Johnson's game-sealing interception, he had a nice pass deflection to make it 3rd and 16. So all 3 pass deflections were in the fourth quarter. Mixed also, linebacker Dorian Williams. He had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. I thought he was playing too high energy at times where he's known for his tackling, but then he whiffed on a few. He had some couple coverage busts, and I hate to say it too, but linebacker Terrell Bernard was also up and down in the mixed category. He had 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit. There were a couple lapses in coverage, and he's known for being awesome in coverage as well. Total upset, Jordan Williams, elite in coverage, Bernard that is, and he was kind of bad in coverage specifically. And left tackle, Deion Dawkins. I put him in mix because don't even agitate that Jets guy, even though it's a bad call. And he had a couple more penalties than I would have liked. He had 2 or 3 penalties himself, like ticky-tack false starts. Correct call or not, you can't do that. So Deion Dawkins, mixed category. Stock down. Defensive end, Greg Rousseau. It's not that he did anything egregious. It's just what he didn't do. He had 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Yeah, okay, woohoo, great. I'm really harsh on Greg Rousseau for good reason, though, I think. Week 1, he had 3 sacks. Week 2, nothing. Week 3, basically, since then, he's done nothing. He had 3 QB hits last week, but he let C.J. Stroud get away against the Texans multiple times and be slippery. QB pressures are great. QB hits are great. I've said this before. I emphasize this. Get them to the ground. You can have all the QB pressures and QB hits you want, but if you don't actually finish and have those sacks, then who the hell cares? I sure as heck don't. So, Greg Rousseau, I think he needs to improve drastically, or he's not going to get that big payday. I'm afraid they're going to overpay him because of it. And then corner Rasul Douglas, 3 tackles, 1 pass deflection. I thought he has amazing ball skills, one of the best ball hawks in the league, hands down, bottom line. I thought he tried to jump a few routes too early. I thought he tried to go for interceptions on way too many when he just should have batted it down. Hello, the Hail Mary, him and Taron Johnson and Bernard. I don't know what they were doing. So Rasul Douglas was a little too jumpy. He was a little too grabby as well. A lot of penalties that I didn't like. So there's just, and then safety Damar Hamlin. I mean, I'm going to give credit to myself. Sorry, but I'm going to give credit to myself for saying that he will be the starting safety opposite Taylor Apple for Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop. I've said this since May. If you've been following me for any point, which by the way you should, but if you've been following me since any point since then, you know I love Damar Hamlin. But my credit to myself is over because I thought he'd be better than he is. 7 tackles and 1 pass deflection. And it wasn't a crucial pass deflection that affected the game either. It was just kind of fourth quarter. whatever. At least Taylor Rapp had redeeming fourth quarter after a very poor first three quarters. Like, DeMar Hamlin had a horrible whole 4 quarters. This is 3 games in a row now where DeMar Hamlin's been very poor. I want to see Mike Edwards out there. As much as it pains me to say, they got to do something about the safety possession. They just can't keep rolling Rapp, especially Hamlin, out there. Like, this duo is bad. And then kicker Tyler Bass. What are we doing here, man? 1 of 2 on field goals, 2 of 3 on extra points, and you can say, well, the extra point was blocked. Okay, but do you know why it was blocked and it wasn't even close? Because it was a low drive kick. 99.9% of the time, kicks, especially extra points, are blocked and embarrassingly bad and blocked because the kickers low drive him. Get him up there. Get him up there towards the goalpost. And he had a low kick. And then 2 or 3 of field goals. I was nervous he was going to miss the 20-yarder when it was tied 20 to put us up 23-20, which ends up being the final score, thank God. But whew, I believe it's on Brandon Beane. I think he should have drafted a kicker, maybe even signed one, and they have a 3-way competition between the rookie who was drafted, probably mid to late day 3. Late day 3 most likely, which makes sense. The free agent kicker, and then Tyler Bass have a 3-way competition. I don't care if you had to eat $7 million dead cap. I need you to move on from him this offseason. Like, I think it's a detriment to Sean and Brandon Beane. He neglected the kicker position. He neglected the wide receiver position, especially. And now with Devontae Adams going to the Jets, he's got to trade for Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins. Someone like that. People have mentioned Romeo Doubs. That's like more of the same third-year receiver. Like I want someone who's for sure better than what we have now. And Romeo Doubs would just be more of the same, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does to you guys. But yeah, that's where my mind's at with that. But Tyler Bass, what in the world is going on, man? He's just horrible. Like, he's the number 6 highest paid kicker in the league. And if you're a top 10 highest paid kicker in the league, you've got to be at least 85% at minimum. And he's at 75% right now. And that's horrible for number 6 high paid kicker in the league, or kicker period. So run defense was atrocious as well. I already knew that. And this was easily our worst performance ever. Even with Ed Oliver in there, he's an undersized defensive tackle. Other than Daquan Jones, we don't have much girth in the defensive tackle room. Like Zion Logue, okay. Austin Johnson, undersized. Dwayne Carter, undersized, although he's had some nice things as well. Nice plays. So, we need more size in the defensive tackle room, and Ed Oliver's severely undersized as well. And then tackling, like, we whiffed on a bunch of tackles. And these are guys that normally don't miss tackles, like Dorian Williams. He never misses tackles. He missed a bunch last night. Taylor Rapp, he never misses tackles. He did. Terrell Bernard, he never misses tackles. He did. So these were guys that normally, like, are for sure surefire tacklers, and they weren't last night, like, at all. And it was really devastating and annoying. Penalties. Holy mother of God. Penalties. We had 11 penalties for 94 yards. There were 204 penalty yards between both teams, and that was just accepted penalties. There were a few more on both sides that were declined as well. This was an absolute bloodbath in terms of penalty. Absolute penalty bloodbath. This was ridiculous. Like, and then you can thank for 6 of these goddamn penalties, you can thank right tackle Spencer Brown. He had 3 false starts, 2 illegal formations, and 1 unnecessary roughness, and he was getting chippy with the Jets defensive line all night. He was shoving them. He was going back and forth with them. He was going up to him and taunting them. Just stay in your lane, dude. And the problem is you can't bench him for what? Ryan Vandermark, who's a disaster at right tackle and a decent enough left tackle. Tyler Grable's on IR, who you trusted over Vandermark as a healthy scratch the first 3 games of the season. So I don't know how that's going to work, but Spencer Brown, very horrible. And he was chippy all night. And these penalties. This was, again, I go back to this. This was an embarrassingly horrible product for the NFL. And Adrian Hill was horrific. Big Slice of the Game Award. Who really stood out to me? I'm going to give it to both. I usually don't do this, but I have it tied 1 offense, 1 defense. Ray Davis on offense, Taron Johnson on defense. Ray Davis came in, stepped the hell up for James Cook. Defense, Taron Johnson. It's so glad, refreshing sight to have him back through and through. Game-sealing interception. Burnt Slice of the Game Award. Who really disappointed me? Greg Rousseau, man. I said it. He's been invisible since week 1. You need to have 1, at minimum 2, maybe even 3 sacks on a week-in, week-out basis. AJ Epinesa is playing flat out better than you right now, and that's not a good sign. I like Epinesa, but now he's thrusted full-time starting role. Before he was splitting snaps basically identically between Epinesa and Von Miller, but Rousseau, step the hell up, man. I don't know what you're doing over there. Get your head out of your you-know-what, and let's get it going. Reflecting on 5-game predictions from preview, I predicted Josh Allen will have over 36.5 rushing yards. That didn't happen. We have a caveat to this, though, asterisk, if you will. I said in the preview late last week, they need to have 8 to 10 rushing attempts at minimum. He had 9, but that didn't lead to much rushing equity, and much production, if you will. He only had 18 rushing yards and 9 carries. That's only 2 yards a carry. Pretty poor, but I guess he had the touchdown, snowplow, tush rush, whatever the hell you might call it. That didn't happen, over 36.5. I said give me Dalton Kincaid over 0.5 touchdowns. He didn't have a single touchdown. That didn't happen. We're 0 for 2 in predictions. Aaron Rodgers over 0.5 interceptions. Thank God for that Taron Johnson, like Houdini play, ripping away from Mike Williams. Thank God Mike Williams had his head up his you-know-what and ran the wrong route and slipped, and that's what forced them to trade for Devontae Adams. That happened. I'm 1 of 3 in predictions now. And then Breece Hall over 51.5 rushing yards. He had 113. Garbage run defense, so that happened. He literally more than doubled that, so that's great. And then I said Greg Rousseau would have at least 2 sacks. I predicted it would happen, and it just needed to happen on necessity. He didn't have a single one. So all in all, that didn't happen. 2 of 5 on predictions this week, and this wasn't an official prediction to count towards the tally, but I said the Bills would win 20-17. The game script went exactly how I thought it would. Both teams would be insanely run heavy, which they were. Both teams would be slow on offense, which they were. No, not many explosive plays. Methodical, ugly, not pretty at all. I said the Bills would win 20-17. They won within 3, but I was 3 points off in the wrong direction. Bills won 23-20, but I'll take it. Final thoughts on certain stuff. I only have a couple here. Even when James Cook comes back, it's probably 1 or 2 weeks away, a minimum, probably 2, just because the last minute change, which I was not happy with, by the way. Even when James Cook comes back, you can't let Ray Davis go back to being 0 carries and only being a garbage time running back when you're leading by a bunch or down by a bunch. I think he's the clear RB2 over Ty Johnson. Say when James Cook comes back, he gets 20 to 25 touches total, and then Ray Davis gets 12 to 15 touches total, and then Ty Johnson maybe like 5 or 6. I don't know, but that's how I would shake it out. But Ray Davis, bottom line, can't be a garbage time running back, no matter if James Cook's in or not. And then the wide receivers on this team still aren't good enough. If Mac Hollins is getting end zone targets for you consistently, and Mac Hollins is catching a touchdown for you, then that tells you all you need to know, and you really need to reevaluate why you neglected this. Cough, cough, Brandon Bean, wake up. And then something needs to be done about this safety tandem. Taylor Rapp, fine, whatever. But DeMar Hamlin, 3 weeks in a row now of garbage play. I'll just be blunt with you guys, to put it bluntly. Bad. And then takeaways from offensive snap counts. Mac Hollins playing 67% of snaps is just way too high. I want him more in the 45 to 45% range personally. I think he should only be in there on special team purposes, on all 4-phase special teamer, and for obvious running downs and run blocking purposes. He's an elite blocker, elite special teamer, elite special teams contributor, but 67% of snaps is 20 to 25% more than I want. It's kind of ridiculous how much he's playing. And then Khalil Shakir clearly wasn't right last night, as he only played 38% of snaps. Personally, I don't know if he tweaked that ankle. I don't know if it got worse. I haven't seen anything that it did. But personally, I would have kept him out. He didn't really affect this game. It was obviously a run-heavy game plan anyway, so I feel like they just forced him to play because they didn't have Cook, so they couldn't be without Cook and Khalil Shakir. But I would have held him out, just personally. Don't take any changes. And then takeaways from defensive snap counts. I thought everything was normal. Nothing abnormal. No high percentage snaps. Nothing abnormal there. I thought everything was ho-hum. So anyways, guys, the Bills defeat the Jets 23-20. Jets are now 2-4. There's trade for Devontae Adams, and they might trade Mike Williams now. I actually guarantee they probably will. Devontae Adams helps, I guess, for the Aaron Rodgers, best friend club. But I mean, it's still a circus over there, and what's really going to happen. So now the Bills have a 2-game lead in the Jets in the AFC East, and the Bills should easily defeat the Titans, and they should go into Week 11 against the Chiefs 8-2. I don't really see any more losses in the schedule until then, and we beat the Chiefs in the regular season. So we could probably win anyway, 9-2. But anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Thank you for tuning into this episode today. We broke down a lot, but there's a lot to be happy with. There's a lot to be not so happy with. We still have a lot of issues, especially with the wide receiver room as a whole, but I'll take it. 23-20, gritty win was my one word through and through. So anyways, guys, lastly, you can follow me on Twitter personally at awangerner13. You can follow the show on Twitter at Around Slice. You can, of course, watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can support me on Substack. It's a way for me to provide written content for you guys, many Bills preview articles, game recap articles, other stuff, maybe some fantasy football content in there as well. It's totally free to join. And if you want to support me on Patreon for bonus content just for you guys as patrons, you can go to patreon.com/aroundtheslice. That is just $3 a month. And one last thing before we get out of here, I promise I'm on the road to 50 subscribers. Let's get to the big 5-0. No deadline, but I would really appreciate you guys. I know you guys can do it. Pretty jam-packed episode today, but I love it. Anyways, guys, thank you for supporting as always. I will see you. Let's see, Bills. Most likely I'll see you on Friday, October 18th for the Bills Titans preview show. So yeah, I'll see you then. 3 days from now. Go Bills. Bye.